This is lesson 5.1. We're going to be talking about understanding percents. Okay, lesson 5.1, understanding percents. And the objectives today, your standards, is I can explain what a percent means. I can change a percent to a decimal. I can change a decimal to a percent. I can change fractions to percents, and I can change percents to fractions. The standard is EE2. Understand that rewriting an expression in different forms is a problem in a problem context can shed light on the problem and how the quantities in it are related. So what is a percent? So a percent is a way of describing a part of a whole, just like fractions and decimals. Here, I'll minimize myself here. So fractions and decimals use fractions, and a decimal is a part of a fraction, and so a percent is a part of a fraction. With fractions, the denominator, the bottom number, tells how many parts a whole, such as a pizza, is cut into. So 3/8, what does that mean? Well, that means you have a pizza, you have a numerator and a denominator. Numerator is top number, denominator is bottom number. You have a pizza cut into 8 pieces, of which 3 of them are eaten. So that's what this is meaning. So you have a pizza cut into 8 pieces or whatever, some object, whatever, and then you are eating 3 of the parts. So any whole number except for 0 can be a denominator. You can't have 0 on the bottom. It doesn't make sense. So 0 is undefined. It's not a possibility. So here's our 8-piece pizza. This pizza is cut into 8 pieces. And we are going to eat or color in 3 of those pieces. Okay, so we have eaten 3/8 of that pizza. If 3 pieces are colored, we say 3/8 of the pizza is colored in, or eaten, or divided. With decimals, a whole is divided into tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, all multiples of 10. So decimals have a 10 base. So 3/10, that's a pizza cut into 10 pieces, of which 3 are colored in, is the same as 0.3 as a decimal. How did I get that? Well, I could have done, I don't know if I'm showing it or not in my next click, but let's see. I would have done 3 divided by 10. And you guys have done that, so you know how to do that. You put a decimal point and a 0. 10 goes now into 33 times. So that's where the 0.3 is coming from. So a fraction and a decimal are related. How about 4 100ths? As a decimal, that would be 0.04. And what about 7 thousandths? That would be 0.007. 007. Did you ever see the movie James Bond? He was 007. There he is. Percent only has one denominator, one bottom number, and that number is 100. 16 over 100 is equal to 16%. Okay, notice the difference. A fraction can have any bottom number. A decimal will have a bottom number of 10, 100, or 1,000, or 10,000, or 100,000, etc. Percent only has a bottom number of 100. So here, let's look at some examples of percents. 35 cents is 35 100ths of a dollar, because there's 100 cents in a dollar. Or 0.35 of a dollar if you wrote it in decimal language, or 35% of a dollar. So you can write 3 different ways. This is your fraction way, this is your decimal way, and this is your percent way. I highlighted that in yellow because we're talking about percents. If a pizza is cut into 8 slices and you eat all 8 slices, you have eaten 8 slices out of 8 pieces of the pizza, or you've eaten 1 whole pizza. In percent language, you would have eaten 100% of the pizza. If you get a 100% on your test, you have answered all of the questions correctly. Oh, here's one. If you have a test with 20 questions on it and you answered 10 questions correctly, you have answered 10 out of 20 questions correctly, 10/20ths, or you could reduce 10/20ths to 1/2 of the questions correctly. How do you write 1/2 as a decimal? 0.5. Or if you're talking about percent, that would be 50%. That's not a very good score. That's only half of the questions correct. So a 50% on a test would be a good one to retake. Okay, you get some questions about percent. I will see you back in a moment. Pause the video, answer the questions, and then continue. Okay, welcome back. Let's talk about changing decimals to percents. To change a decimal to a percent, you just move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and then you write the percent sign. So here's an example. We're going to keep right. 0.35, that's 35/100ths. We want to write that as a percent. We're going to move our decimal 1 space, 2 spaces to the right. There's the new spot where our decimal goes. So now we have 35 point. So whenever the decimal point is after the number and there's no numbers after that, we can get rid of just the point, right? Just 35. So that's the same as 35%. How about 0.8? You want to make that into a percent. Remember to move the decimal 2 to the right. There's 1 jump. There's 2 jumps. Our decimal goes there now. What do we do with our empty space? Right, we fill it in with a 0. So now we can drop the decimal because 80 point is just 80, isn't it? So our answer is 8.8 is the same as 80%. How about 0.04? What would that be as a percent? Do the same thing. Move your decimal 2 places to the right. And then the answer is 4%. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. How about this one? 0.0007. How would that become a percent? Well, you do the same thing. Move your decimal 2 places to the right. There goes your decimal. So your answer is 0.07%. And you can have a decimal percent. That's okay. Okay, you get to try moving some decimals and converting them to percents. Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to change percents back to decimals. So to do that, what do you think we're going to do? Well, we just do the opposite of what we did to change decimals to percents. Now we're changing the percents back to decimals. So we're going to move the decimal place 2 to the left. Okay. So now we're going to keep left. So 35%, I put the decimal back in here, even though normally you would not see the decimal point, you would just say 35%. It's just assumed that you know that there's an imaginary decimal point after a number. Now we have to go 2 to the left. 1, 2, so 35% is going to become 0.35, and you're going to drop the percent sign. Let's see another one. 6%. I put the decimal there just so you know where it goes, but you don't normally see it written as 6%. You'd see it written as 6%. Move the decimal 2 to the left. There's 1. There's 2. Put our decimal there. What do I fill in the empty space with? Exactly, a 0. So the answer is 0.06. We drop the percent sign. Next one, 150%. Put the decimal after the number. 2 to the left. 1, 2. The answer is 1.5. We can drop the extra 0 at the end because 1.50 is the same as 1.5. You wouldn't be wrong if you wrote 1.50. All right, what about 0.9%? Don't get tricked. The decimal is starting in front of the 9. There's my black box again. So we're going to move to the left. 1, 2, put our decimal in there. What do I fill in those spots with? Exactly 2 zeros. And then we drop the percent sign. So the answer is 0.009. So 9%, or 0.9% is 0.009 as a decimal. Okie dokie. Now you can try this. You're changing percents back to decimals. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you did that part. Let's continue. Let's change fractions to percents. How do we do that? It's a little bit more complicated than the moving of the decimal, but let's see. So we're going to change 3/4 to a percent. So step 1, we're going to change the fraction into a decimal by dividing the top number on the inside and the bottom number on the outside. You should be pretty good at this by now, right? We're going to do, I probably am doing it automatedly, but the 3 on the inside and the 4 on the outside, right? So I'm going to clear because it's going to do it for us. So the 3 on the inside, the 4 on the outside, put my decimal point, put my 0, put my decimal up above there. And now I just divide like it's 4 divided into 30. So 4 goes into 30 7 times. Notice how I put the 7 over the 0 because I took it into the whole two numbers of 30, okay? So 4 times 7 is 28, and I subtract 30 minus 28 is 2, right? Now I'm going to add another 0 here, and I'm going to bring it down. Why did I add a 0? Because I don't have a 0 remainder yet, and I don't have anything that repeats, so I have to keep going. So I'm going to bring the 0 down, and now I'm going to divide 4 into 20. 4 goes into 25 times. I put it over the 0. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. So now I'm done. I have a 0 remainder. So I changed 3/4 to a decimal so far. 0.75. And now I know how to change a decimal to a percent. So if I'm using a calculator, I would do 3, would hit the 3 key. I would hit the divided by symbol key. I would hit the 4. I would hit the equals, and I would get 0.75 on my display. Okay, now let's change 0.75 to a percent. Change your answer to a percent by moving the decimal point 2 places to the right to make it a percent, right? So we have 0.75. We're going to go 1 spot, 2 spots. Our decimal goes there now. And we can kind of drop the decimal after the number and just put the percent sign there. So 75%. So 3/4 as a percent is equal to 75%. Because it's 75, it's 3 parts out of 100. 3/4 is equal to 75%. And after you do some of these, you'll start to get familiar with certain fractions and how much of a percent that is. So for example, 1/2 is what as a percent? We just did this one on one of the first slides. Yeah, 50%. Correct. Okay, let's keep going. Changing fractions to percents some more. So now we're going to do a little harder one. Change 4/25 to a percent. Step 1, change the fraction into a decimal by dividing the top number on the inside and the bottom number on the outside. Top number's always on the inside. Don't get that mixed up. Now we can't divide 25 into 4, can we? That doesn't make sense. So we put a point and a 0. And then we put the point above it. And now we divide 25 into 40. 25 goes into 40 only one time. And then I multiply. 25 times 1 is 25. 40 minus 25 is 15. I don't have a 0 remainder and nothing repeats, so I'm going to put another 0 here and bring it down. Now, how many 25s go into 150? I know that goes equally. If 4 is 100, 5 is 125, 6 would be 150, so it's going to go in there 6 times. 6 times 25 is 150. Now I subtract 150 minus 150, and I get a 0 remainder. So we have changed 4 25ths to a decimal of 0.16. If I use my calculator, I would type in 4, the divided by sign, 25, I'd hit the equals, and I would get 0.16. Now we just have to change your answer to a percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So it's in the front of the 1, so let's go 1 space to the right, 2 spaces to the right. Our decimal now goes there, and we drop the decimal and add a percent sign. 0.16 is equal to 16%. So 4 25ths is the equivalent of 16%. Okay, you get to try changing a fraction into a percent. Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to change a percent to a fraction. We changed fractions to percents. Now we're going to do the opposite. So we have to change 35% to a fraction. Okay, remember how a percent is always a part out of 100? That was our first slide, right? Write the percent as a fraction with 100 as the bottom number. So 35% is equivalent to 35 over the number 100. Percent is always over 100 parts. And then step 2 is just to reduce the fraction. How do I reduce? Well, I figure out the biggest number that will go into both 35 and into 100. If I don't get the biggest number, that's okay. I might have to divide twice. That's perfectly fine. So 35 over 100 divided by, we're going to use 5 because that's the greatest common factor. And 35 divided by 5 is equal to 7. 100 divided by 5 is equal to 20. Now I have 7/20ths, and that's in lowest terms. So 35% is equal to 7/20ths as a fraction. If I were to take my calculator and put 7 divided by 20 equals, I would get 0.35. Let's change 12% to a fraction. So step 1, write the percent as a fraction with 100 as the bottom number. 12 over 100. Step 2, reduce the fraction. So I'm going to reduce 12 over 100. I can divide by at least a 2, but I bet I could divide by a 4, right? So let's divide by the greatest common factor of 4. If I divided by 2, that's okay. I would just have to divide by another 2 again, that's all. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 100 divided by 4 is 25. So 12% as a fraction is 3/25. Okie dokie? Because now you get to try changing a percent into a fraction in lowest terms. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you paused, did your turn, and came back. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some higher order thinking. You go out to dinner with your family and the bill is $25. You want to leave a 15% tip for the waitress. How do you figure out how much of a tip to leave her? Well, you're going to change the percent to a decimal. We know how to do that. 15%, what is that as a decimal? 0.15, right? 0.15. And then you're going to multiply the decimal by the amount of the bill. So we're going to have 25 times 0.15. That will give us 3.75. So you're going to leave her a tip of $3.75. And that's a very practical life skill that you will do frequently. Okay, try a problem like this. See if you can figure out the tip or the tax. Not sure if it's going to be tip or tax, one of the two, and then I'll see you back. Okay, I will come back. Your homework is on Google Classroom, and I will see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.